Short moments, many times. This is a quote by the great dzogchen master Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche. I first became connected with this tradition, dzogchen tradition, which is in the Tibetan Buddhist Nyingma tradition, when I was coming up on the path, and I used to look at and research about many masters. I used to look at pictures of masters, and I didn't really have a preference from what tradition any master was from. I was utterly non-sectarian in my approach. I'd like the look of a master, then I'd look into them, I'd look into what they say, and I just look at pictures. I just look at pictures as well. I became very attracted to a number of masters from this tradition, from Padmasambhava's tradition, Dilga Khyentse Rinpoche, Chatra Rinpoche, Dujom Rinpoche, all these great beings. And eventually, after I had my, what I would call awakening to who I am, awakening to the natural state, in the kind of Buddhist parlance, they'd call it realizing your natural mind. After I had this experience, I realized that, okay, this is not the end. I realized that this state is not perfect yet. Still there are imperfections there, still there is some fear there, still there are some other patterns there playing out, in parallel to this ongoing recognition of who I really am. So as this new process was going on, what I would call a dissolution process, or kind of perfecting or polishing that state that had been realized or recognized, I discovered the teachings of this great master, Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, mainly through 3 of his books, Rainbow Painting and As It Is, Volume 1 and 2. It's quite interesting. When I wrote my 3rd book, Avadhuta Gita, before I knew anything about all the dzogchen, the main way I was referring to reality in this book, in this commentary, was reality as it is. As it is, as it is. So I found that quite interesting, that matched the title of this book, which was a compilation of Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche's teachings. And the main teaching that I want to pick out here, and I don't think this is just his teaching, I think it's a general kind of pith teaching from the dzogchen tradition. And that's, this short moments many times. Short moments of what? In this case, short moments of recognition. Recognizing who you are. Who recognizes that? No one recognizes that. It's just a moment when your real nature, your essence, your natural state is allowed to shine as it is. Okay? So it's not a realization, it's not a recognition that belongs to anybody. It's not a recognition that you can own, right? Very difficult to put this thing in words. That state just is. It recognizes itself, right? And this happens, this kind of recognition can only happen once the dualistic mind, the self-identifying mind, the self-crystallizing mind has become weakened enough that eventually it just collapses. It can no longer sustain this constant flow of self-identification, self-identified thinking, where we're recreating ourselves in each moment through telling ourselves stories about ourselves. So short moments many times means coming back again and again and again and again to this recognition. And that doesn't happen through effort. It's like a natural rebounding back to yourself. That's how it happens. If we haven't recognized who we are, if we haven't recognized our natural state, how can we apply this teaching? We still can apply this teaching, right? But we need a reference point. And the reference point that I would give, it's not that I'm giving it, you need to find it yourself, is the deepest state of kind of peace and ease and naturalness and effortlessness that you can find within yourself. a state within yourself where you feel utterly peaceful, utterly content, or might not even be utterly, as much as you can. The deepest state that you can get in. And I don't mean also a state that you get in while you're sitting in some trance state in meditation. I mean a state that you can actually flow in. A state that you can actually move in the world, in life, right? We need to have some kind of state like that as a reference point. We need to have something that we can come back to. And then, just like this short moments many times, we learn to bring ourselves back to that state. So that state almost becomes a memory, it becomes a remembrance. We get lost in a flow of thinking, worrying, plotting, controlling, manipulating. And then we remember, there's this state there that exists just when I let go. When I release all of that stuff, I let go, I come back. I come back to this state. And the thing is, why it's short moments many times is that state won't last. It's not supposed to last at the beginning. Again, thought will continue, whatever will continue, emotions will continue, fear and desire will continue. Let them continue. And when the natural moment arises, when you remember yourself again, you remember that state, you start to have this longing to come back to that state, you let it happen, right? And a simple way to allow this to happen is my method that I always talk about, act or accept. We perceive a problem, we perceive suffering in ourselves, we perceive tension, we perceive a knot. Give ourselves two options. Either we accept things fully, we accept ourselves, we accept the situation, right? So there's nothing to think about. We've accepted it, we've embraced it. Either we do that, or we see, right, there's a need for concrete, dynamic action here, and we take the action. Either way, this will help release us from whatever kind of tension we feel that we are locked in whatever moment in life, right? So once we get rolling with this acceptance, once we get disciplined in thinking, right, I'm not going to torture myself with thinking, I'm going to accept this thing fully, or I'm going to take action. Once we do this, this opens up gradually that state of contentment, where there's nothing to think about, there's nothing to worry about, because we've accepted everything. Or the mobilized mode of that state is where we're doing what we need to do and we're acting fearlessly, right? Fearlessness in action is the mobilized mode of this natural state of contentment, of bliss, of peace, whatever you want to call it. So on this path, natural path, we're not aiming just for a state that we're able to access when we sit down in our comfortable room or when we go on retreat or whatever. We're aiming for a dynamic state, a fluid state, a state that can be mobilized, a state of peace that can also mobilize itself as fearless action. This is what we're going for here, right? At the beginning, we won't be able to be like this all the time. That's why this great practice in dzogchen is short moments many times. These moments won't last forever. But if we're attentive, we can have thousands of these moments throughout the day where we're coming back to ourselves, where we're accepting, or where we're giving ourselves a push to know, do what needs to be done, be as fearless as possible, right? So this is an amazing teaching. This was a teaching that was extremely helpful for me. After I recognized my essence, the practice came, okay, keep coming back to it, keep coming back to it, keep coming back to it. The mind would still wander, the self would kind of sometimes try to reconstitute itself, but this recognition of who I was kind of became gravitational. It would just pull it, I would just get pulled back and pulled back and pulled back. And the more I got pulled back, the more I got established in that, the more this kind of action that I'm talking about, fearless action, natural action, effortless action, became the obvious mode of being. That's just what your action looks like when you're not caught up in many different patterns like fear, insecurity, and the like. This is just what happens. So short moments many times. Short moments of what? This is what you need to find. This is your anchoring state that you need to find. The state which manifests when you accept, when you surrender, when you let go. And also its mobilized form, when you're able to be fearless, honest, dynamic, brave in life. We need to keep coming back over and over and over and over again to this way of being. And eventually it becomes more established, and then eventually it becomes permanent. It becomes a permanently established way of being.